Our sponsors tonight, Barbara Ann Bloom, in memory of her beloved husband, Leonard I. Bloom, Sherry and Gary Bauman, in memory of their father, Carl Bauman, on his 6th yard site, Tracy and Michael Kotlicki, in memory of their parents, Gloria and Jack Gordon, and Leah and Harry Kotlicki, Congregation Shomrei Emunah, the Israel group, what's it called?
Shomrei Israel Committee.
The Shomrei Israel Committee, and Rabbi Marek, thank all of you, and thanks to the Baltimore Zionist District. Thank you to Avram Klugman for taking care of the video tonight, and thanks to Rabbi Hauer and to Mike Lowenstein for making tonight possible.
What an honor it is for me to introduce our special guest tonight, and what a privilege it is for all of us to hear in person the unique story of Yosef Mendelevich. In the documentary we just saw, Elie Wiesel spoke about the Jews of silence of former Soviet Union and the Jews of silence in the United States. That was all to change in a massive way due to, in large part, the leaders and heroes like Yosef Mendelevich. In the beginning of the first chapter of his autobiography, Yosef quotes from the Parsha Lech Lecha. God said to Abram, "Go away from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to the land that I will show you." That was Yosef's motivation. That was his mantra. That was his emunah. And nothing was going to stop him from reaching the goal of living in Eretz Yisrael. Not the KGB, the Soviet secret police force, and not his 11 years in the Gulag, where the Soviets oppressively imprisoned his body, but not his heart and not his soul. During these 11 long years, sentenced because of his participation in a hijacking attempt to flee to freedom in the West, he maintained his unbroken spirit amidst great sacrifice. And then finally he was released to freedom in Israel, released to openly practice his beloved religion, and so thankful for the many miracles and wonders that God has bestowed upon him. Yosef was only 22 years old when he was arrested, thus becoming a prisoner of Zion, and 33 years old when he was freed. And so at the age of 33, he started a new life. He married, had 7 children, and many grandchildren. He served in the IDF. He earned his rabbinic ordination and a master's degree in Jewish history, and he's currently teaching at the Machon Meir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, where he continues to impact and inspire his students. What we are going to hear tonight is not only part of the story of Soviet Jewry, but rather, in Rabbi Mendelevich's words, the story about emunah and the strength of the Jewish neshama. Rabbi Mendelevich.
Really very moving. I cried looking as you demonstrated, as you protested. Even now, I remember this dream in me came through. Unbelievable. I would say that now we know that if we want, we can. It happened, and it should happen again and again with every Jewish dream, with all our big Jewish dreams. So let us continue to dream and to fight and to be together. When watching this moving movie, I thought, what else can I add? Everything is told. But as far as it comes, I have to do something. So, maybe after you will ask questions, about the beginnings. Or maybe it still should be understood how people start these kind of activities, not specifically trying to hijack an airplane, it comes later, but at all, how a Soviet citizen, a Soviet Jew, like me, a member of communist youth movement Komsomol, became an opponent of a Soviet regime. I have answers, but better now I will continue somehow the story you saw on the screen, and I will maybe add some more dimension. When we were arrested, I understood that it was a calculated trap, and the goal of KGB was to break our will under interrogation and make us cooperate with them, and then to stage a big performance during the trial that we were supposed to be the actors, the performers, to claim world jury, ask not to interfere in our business, and tell that we are satisfied that it was a mistake, that we were brainwashed by Zionism or whatever, and call upon Russian jury stop any national involvement. It means that trying to use us, the people that had a dream, to break our own dream. And it's hard to admit, but now it is history, and we have to know history, that people got broke. When you expect death penalty and life penalty, and you are all alone, each of us in a separate cell, people feel that everything is lost, and start cooperating and giving names, very bitter. So, my story is that my father was arrested when I was a child, and I remember how the police, militia, broke in our flat, how they searched, how my father was arrested, and I couldn't do it to other friends. I couldn't give names. Also, I was myself afraid of getting death penalty, but I couldn't do it. So, they felt that I am spoiling their performance. I am only the one that wouldn't cooperate. They tried to break me in different ways. One of their approaches that I told many times again, but I will repeat it, they told me, there was a certain officer that told me, I'm looking at you, he told me, you look like my young brother, you know. You don't look Jewish at all. What happened with you, you know? He told me, I understand that you have dreams and values, but understand, it is not the time. You are in our hand. You cannot break the wall with your head. You will break your head. So stop being stubborn. Start cooperate. And then you will deserve life. If not, you will get death penalty. Think about that. So when I was back in my cell, I felt somehow good. For the first time, I had an interrogator that would talk to me as a human being. He understands me. He suggests me to be realistic. And I thought to myself, and I believe my friends as well did the same, maybe really it's the time to be realistic. For it's a question of my life. Later on I will be released. I can continue my life. And then I asked myself, what life? Life of a Soviet citizen. I remembered myself being previously, before I discovered that I am Jewish, the life of regular Soviet citizen. a dull life without any meaning. When I discovered what means to be Jewish, I found meaning and sense, enjoying my life. And now I thought to myself, they are going to take away the joy, and they suggest instead, I would say, sorry to tell it, the life of a dog, not of a human being. Not being a Jew is no meaning for me to be alive at all. So I decided to build a wall between me and him, this officer, to make him believe and understand that also I look like them, I speak their language, I understand their language, I am different. And by the way, I had to make me remember that I am Jewish. For when you are in prison, you have no friends, nobody can support you, you start forgetting, you know. For we were self-cultivated Jews. We had no Jewish background. And all of a sudden I have not my friends, nothing around. I even can't listen to Kol Israel transmitting. I have to keep me strong, not to forget that I am Jewish, and to make them understand that I am Jewish. So I had a double task: to be Jewish, to behave Jewish, and to show that I am Jewish. So I start thinking what I can produce in a cell that will answer this demand. And I thought about something that for the beginning I had to cover my head. For it happened that I became about Jew like in several years before I was arrested. It was my decision to start keeping and observing mitzvahs. So when I come to the airport, I had a beret on my head and I had a yarmulke in my pocket. So I figured that when I come to Israel, I will put the yarmulke on my pocket, on my head. But the moment I was arrested, everything was taken away. I had nothing to cover my head. So it was the beginning of my struggle. For understand, before that, it was a struggle to become free to go out from Soviet Russia. Now I understand I have another challenge: to fight remaining a Jew, to be a free Jew in prison. So for the beginning, I have here some tchotchkes to show you. So I had a handkerchief, and I made from this handkerchief and yarmulke, so I put it on my head. And when I was escorted to this good officer, he looked at my yarmulke and he told me, "What's on your head?" He told me, you know. "Behave," he told me. "You're an educated man. What put you this piece of cloth on your head?" So I told him, you know, Jews covering their head, it's our national tradition. You took away my yarmulke, so I have nothing to do, nothing else than it. And then I produced him a whole speech about Jewish tradition and Jewish history, whatever I studied in my underground. It was very angry with me, and he told me, "Go away," you know. And he told me, "You think you are smart?" He told me, "You are stupid, for you are digging your grave with your own hands. For this cheeky behavior, you will certainly get the harshest penalty. Take him away." So when I was back in my cell, I understood that I am on my right way, that I am building the wall. And when my enemy is angry with me, it's exactly what I need. I don't like my enemy be satisfied with me. So I started thinking about something else, and it occurred to me that I can pray, I can daven. When I was a child, and I mentioned that my father was arrested, I remember that we, my family, my mother, and my two sisters went to the court to listen to the sentence. We were not permitted to enter the building, So we stood across this building, across the road, and then I felt, as a child, that I can help my father. How? I was very tense, and I started telling something very strange. I told, I beg you, I ask you, help my father. I promise you I will be a good boy. I will do whatever is needed. And then I asked myself, who am I talking to? What is it? And I stopped. Now I know it was my first prayer. It is how I discovered my Yiddish neshama, my Jewish soul that is talking and praying without even knowing that. Now, in jail, in a prison myself, I remembered my prayer, and I decided that I will pray in a cell. For it served, as I told you, two tasks: to do something for my Jewish neshama, and it should be demonstrated that I am Jewish, to make them understand that I am different, that I am strange, that I am not like them. So, being a Hebrew teacher in the underground, I studied Hebrew by myself, and when I went to my local synagogue, I could understand what it's about, and I remembered some sentences from Shmona Esrei, so I drew up my prayer, and I would write like this: Ribbono shel olam, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, and then I would tell, please, please, save my nation out from Soviet prison, from Soviet slavery. And then I would tell, take care of my father and my two sisters. For my mother passed away when my father was in prison that time. I was an orphan. And then I would tell, take me out from the prison. I cannot withstand anymore. It's very bitter me here. So I would stand at the wall. I understood that I don't know where is the Mizrach, but at least I would stand at the window and point my heart to Yerushalayim, having this piece of paper and praying. So after a while, guards entered my cell, grabbed me at the wall and told me, all the time you are standing and touching the wall, what, you try to take away a brick, a stone out from the wall to try to escape? They checked the wall and everything was intact. They checked the grate, everything is intact. So what's the reason? They checked my pockets and they found my tefillah. And they thought, now we understand. It's a letter. You try to pass over a letter to your friends. How can you pass over a letter through a locked window with a lot of grates on it? I don't know. Anyway, they took my letter, which was really a letter. It was my letter to Ribbono shel olam. So later on, I was escorted to this office, and my interrogator was very angry. He told, what is the prayer, he told me. You are praying, he told me. You became religious. You never been religious. Who influenced you? Imagine, there's a young boy sitting all alone in a jail, in a cell, and some transformation are going over with him. You know, start covering his head, start praying. Who influenced me? Certainly there was somebody that influenced me. Certainly it was Ribbono shel olam that influenced me. But he wouldn't believe, so I told, every Jew is religious. That's true, every Jew. Amcha kulam tzadikim. It's not me. It's the novice says, Amcha kulam tzadikim. So anyway, he sent me back. Think again, it doesn't pay you. When I was back in the prison, I felt that I have to build another row and this wall between me and him. So what else can I do? And I decided I will keep Shabbos. How you can keep Shabbos in a cell? You are all alone. You create Shabbos. So I start creating Shabbos in a cell. For the beginning, Shabbos is good food. So I would put aside each time when I would get some pieces of bread, I would put aside a piece of bread for Shabbos. So in the end, I had a whole pile of dry bread, and I tore my yarmulke in 2 pieces to cover my chalas. And then, you know, I wrote a special prayer for Shabbos. Now, what you would do for Shabbos, you have to clean up for Shabbos. So I asked the guard to give me some water and a piece of cloth, start washing the walls, and they were very dirty, and it turned later on that previously it used to be a prison of Gestapo. So when the Russian won the war, they turned it a prison of KGB. So it was very dirty, with a lot of tears on the walls. Anyway, when I washed the wall, I felt that there is something sharp between the bricks. It was a small piece of a nail. So I felt that I can scratch on the wall 2 candles and benching licht. So look, you know, a Jew all alone in an empty place created his Shabbos. I have already candles, I have food, I have a prayer, I have a cover for my chalas, everything. So then I scratched on the wall the candles, 2 candles, and believe me, I never saw in Russia people benching licht. For my mother was a communist, she would never do it. But we had in underground a postcard from Israel with women like benching lift. This is how I did know how it should be. So out from this postcard, I closed my eyes, I bench, and when I removed my hands, I couldn't believe. I saw flame coming up in the candles. I was so moved, you know. I got so excited that I started dancing and singing there. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. And then a guard knocked at the door and told me, "You crazy man, stop making noise." I told him, "It's Shabbos today, it's Jewish holiday." He told me, "Yeah, we know you are a religious man, but please don't disturb your friends." You know. And I imagine him walking from one door to another. Imagine a whole passageway with a lot of doors, each for another cell, with a small eye, as we say, babai, to watch the prisoner. And he would watch one prisoner. You can imagine how it looked like. People in disperse without any expectation, black and dark, and all of a sudden he would walk up to my cell, look in the hall, he can't believe a man is dancing and rejoicing. So I believe he told to himself, and he informed the interrogator that Jews are different, you know. They can rejoice even in the jail. So it is how I built a wall between me and this Russian officer. He stopped calling me and telling me that I'm like his Russian brother, whatever. I stopped being his brother, and I felt that's good. Anyway, then it was the time of the trial. It was on Hanukkah, Tafshin Lamed, 1917. When I entered the court, a friend whispered me, "You know, today is Hanukkah." And as we say in Yiddish, it's geworden mir lichtig in the Eden. I understood that now Hanukkah is a day of miracles, Yeshuos and Milchamot. But I did know that my friends are doing something wrong. I was afraid what will happen. So the first man to be questioned was Mr. Dimshitz, and I believe he had a scenario that under this scenario he had to admit guilty and call up a whole jury to stop being involved in our business or whatever. So, Mr. Dimshitz, you were a member of Communist Party, you were a major in Russian Air Forces, and you got a second degree in engineering. You got everything from our country. How at all you come to betray our motherland? So I imagine what he had to declare according to this scenario. He stood up and he told, "I accuse you Russians that you are anti-Semitic. You closed all our educational institutions. schools, yeshivas. You killed our rabbis, our educators. It's why we have to run away from your country. For you are against us. And you are against our Jewish state. He told, don't never say that it is because of all kind of political reasons that you are against Israel. It's because it is a Jewish state. You hate everything Jewish, and you hate the Jewish state. It's why we had to run away. So they couldn't expect it. He is really a courageous man, real hero, for real, expected this penalty. And his wife was arrested, and his 2 small daughters were arrested, and still he spoke up. So it's a contradiction, for he gave evidences. But the moment he had to confess, he declared the truth. And he set the tone. So all other friends had to behave like him, for he was a ringleader. You saw here on the screen Silva Zalmanson, a heroic woman. Her husband, Eduard Kuznetsov, was arrested and expected death penalty too. So she cried all the time. And they felt that at least she is broken and she will produce the necessary staff. They asked her, Silva, what's the reason you tried to escape from Soviet Russia? And she told, every Jew swears, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yemini, in Loshen Kodesh. So the judge asked for translation. She translated. I saw the judge is going to collapse, He understood that everything is lost, No declaration, nothing. It was a victory. Finally, I was asked myself what's the reason. Certainly they wouldn't expect a big statement from me. So I answered, I told, Ribono Shel Olam gave Eretz Yisrael to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And I am their grandchild, so it's my place to be there. It's why I run there to be in Israel. And another man from the persecution stood up and told the judge, in vain would you ask the question, this criminal, don't you know that Mendelevich is a religious fanatic, he told me. We cannot understand how this man studied electronics in our university and is that limited in his outlooks. He is interested only in Torah, mitzvahs, and Eretz Yisrael. So I understood that he is cursing me and telling that I have to get a harsh penalty, but as we say, when Bilam is cursing, it's blessing Am Yisrael. It's exactly the case. For only half a year before, they told me that I'm a Russian guy, Russian culture, Russian education. They felt that I'm their slave. They can do whatever they would like with me. And all of a sudden, it turned out that I'm not a slave at all. I'm a free man, as we say, Ben Chorin. And how I became a Ben Chorin? Thanks to mitzvahs. It is why I say it is not that I'm obliged to perform mitzvahs. I need them, for otherwise I wouldn't be a human being. I would be a Soviet citizen. Thanks mitzvahs, I remain what I was, Yosef Mendelevich. So, as you watched in the movie, certainly there was 2 death sentences to Mr. Dimshitz and Mr. Kuznetsov. I was the third one. I got 15 years of imprisonment for trying to harm state security, some 15 years trying to hijack the Russian airplane, and some 7 years for underground Jewish activity, something like a clinic. Anyway, and that time, it is when you people stood up specifically. It's true that your involvement started in the 60s. By the way, our movement started as well exactly in the years in 60s. We established our underground movement. Anyway, everybody admits that this this hijacking operation, and specifically the trial, was a turning point in our struggle. We sat and expected what will happen. After a week, a friend knocked me on the wall, and I did understand that he is willing to talk. The walls not only limits you, it will as well it used like a communication system. You can speak through the wall and you can listen. So he told me, you know, under heavy pressure of world public opinion, the Russians canceled death penalties and they softened all other penalties. He told me I got only 10 years, Silva got 8 years of imprisonment, and Yosef got 12 years of imprisonment. And we were sent to serve our time. Already on the way to the labor camp, I got some letters that I was not permitted to have when I was under interrogation and trial and in the court. So one letter would say, Yosef, we got permission to leave. And another from my friends, Yosef, we are on the border with Hungary, which meant they are on the way to Israel, and they would tell, thanks friends, it's because of you. And then of my both sisters that got permission to leave, I got a telegram saying that they are flying to Israel. So I understood that it is not only our private achievement that we are not being killed, but more than that, we all together opened the Iron Gate and people started going away. So I thought to myself, if being in a prison can bring freedom to other Jews, I can stay in prison as much as needed. And Ribbon Shalom heard my prayer and kept me in prison for 11 years. But indeed, you know, when you know that you are a winner, it's much more easier to be in prison. If it would be a failure, really, and everything would be crushed, it would be bad. But we won the battle, you know, and we continued our struggle inside the prison. For example, I'm afraid it may be too late, but I will tell you some stories in a prison. For when we arrived to the prison, to the labor camp, we felt ourselves Israeli soldiers in prison. Not simply victims of KGB, fighters that continue our struggle. And it's how I start educating other Jews, keep mitzvahs. And we looked for a way to keep Shabbos, to avoid eating treif food, to get a Chumash and a Siddur inside the prison. It was everything part of our struggle. So, for example, we discovered that there is a certain cook in a kitchen, a Ukrainian nationalist, that promised us that he would put aside some vegetables, and if it would be not able to do it, he would warn us. For he explained that normally he would cook some vegetarian soup, potatoes, carrots, whatever, and then he would add some animal fat or bones in the end of cooking. So we asked him if he is able to separate, before he adds these treif bones, separate it so that we could eat it. So imagine us after the work, finishing our work at night, from going from the factory to the kitchen, and a row of hundreds of prisoners would stand and the distribution window, and this man would give everybody his soup. My turn, he looked in the window and told, no, today you cannot eat it. I got my mashgiach, you know. He told, you can't eat it, you know, for there was a guard in the kitchen, and I couldn't divide separate for you. So what to do? He told, you know what, I have additional bread for you. Come, after I finish distribution, come in the back of the kitchen, I'll give you bread. For you have to understand, even Goyim, Christian, had honor for us. And some of them would tell, you set an example of real believers. You teach us how to behave as a religious man, that you are ready to sacrifice everything for you believe. It is why Ukrainian people specifically, I don't know what's happening right now, but that time they supported us. For they told us, you are our symbol. And then later on, we found a certain guard that was smuggling inside the prison some food for other prisoners, like not specifically food, maybe vodka and chocolate, everything that it was forbidden. So our relatives approached him from the other part of the fence and asked to smuggle inside a chumash and a siddur. He told, if they found a bottle of vodka in my pocket, so what? Everybody is drinking vodka. But if they found a Jewish book, I can be arrested myself. So Baruch Hashem, American Jews sent more money. And I believe for $1,000 he finally agreed to smuggle inside the siddur. So when I was in a factory, I was already informed that I got a siddur under my mattress. I come back at night from the factory to this barrack. I lifted the mattress and I saw a real siddur, a beautiful one. But it was it was too beautiful. I couldn't use it. For the moment I would take it out from under the mattress, we were surrounded by Sonei Israel, former collaborators, Nazi collaborators that hated us, and they would inform immediately that Mendelevich has a strange book and is praying, whatever, it would be confiscated at once. So sometimes you have it, and in fact you can have it. So I figured that I can go to work at night, and they would work on 3 shifts. So coming back in the morning, the barracks were empty, and I could daven there. And then I decided that I will copy down on small pieces of paper the whole siddur, that in case my real one would be confiscated, I can use the second one. And I produced something like that I brought to show you. So it's not that siddur, but it looked like that. See, it's a matchbox, and inside there is a tefillah inside. So I can stand like having this matchbox in my hand. The moment I saw the guard entering, I closed my siddur and put it in the pocket. Nobody can see it. But something much more important happened when I copied down, and you can imagine me sitting between boards, copying down in these small pieces of paper and watching the guards entering, that I can immediately move it and put it under the mattress. It was always on tension. So maybe because of this stress, when I finished copying down my siddur, I felt that I had it on my memory. I memory everything. I don't need any more siddur. And it was really another dimension of freedom. For imagine me being in a punishment room without anything. You are not permitted to have anything. But I had my feeling in my heart. So normally a person in a punishment room, day after day, having nothing there. No people around, you can get crazy. But I had my tefillah. So I could start in the morning, citing every brocha, easy, and then I would continue for some 2.5 hours on my prayer, for it was really a life in a prayer. As we say, Chaim betfilah. For when I say, Avraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech, I'm like escaping. I'm anymore there in the prison. I'm in a different world. So it was not real tefillah. It was like being in a big dream. That I am in a temple. I saw all the sages. Something beautiful, exciting. So it is how I became a Ben Chorin. And then, not certainly all the time I was in a punishment room. So when I was not in punishment room, I had another problem. Went to daven. For in the morning, you have to get up and immediately to go to work into factory. Avadim hayinu be'ar b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves. So one went to daven. I decided I will get up earlier, which was prohibited. You are not permitted to walk outside on proper time. But they had a toilet far away, and there was a lot of snow, not that much like here. The snow there was my height. So I dig a hole in the snow, and I would stand there in the snow, in my niche of the snow, and daven. And the moment I would listen, the guards are coming, for when it's cold and dry, the snow is scratching under the foot, so you can listen. They're coming, so I would go out from my hole and pretending that I'm going to the toilet. But once they found me standing there in the snow, and the officer told me, "What you doing here?" "No, I'm going to the toilet." "Not true. You are doing something against our state. You know, I don't know exactly what's about, but remember, next time, if I found you in the snow, I will punish you just for standing in the snow." So, and then it happened that we discovered a way to keep Shabbos. As a matter of fact, another student, nowadays a famous Russian rabbi, Rav Shimon Grilius, was released. He served only 5 years in prison. But before that, he worked out with a certain, again, Ukrainian prisoner, that he would report on Shabbos that we conducted necessary production. For each day they have to report how much production would you product, and if not, you will be punished for that. So we would prepare in beforehand what is needed, and just going on Shabbos in a factory, and I had a shelter with a window, so I could daven there and watch guards entering. The moment I would see them entering, I could escape and mix with other prisoners. There are hundreds of them, like making myself that I am going to work. So it took several years that I could keep Shabbos. One day I heard steps in my bed. So I turned away to run, to escape, and I saw that the head of prison himself, Major Fyodorov, blocked my way. I understood that they know that I am keeping Shabbos, and they come to make me to violent Shabbos. This Fyodorov told me in a very quiet way, he told me, "Mendelevich, why you don't work, you know?" He told me, "You know, you would like to eat, but you have to deserve your food. You know, nobody would give you food for nothing. Please go to work." So I answered in this quiet manner. I told, "You know, Jews don't work on Shabbos. I am a Jew, I don't work on Shabbos." Then he became angry. He has reddish hair, so he became red, and he started yelling and telling, "You know what, you think you are in a restaurant? You are in my hands, I will put you under the ground. You will die there." Oh, I thought to myself, he is meaning pikuach nefesh. And I know that if there is a pikuach nefesh, I permit it. But one moment, there was no real pikuach nefesh. He just yelled at me, tried to intimidate. So I thought to myself, really, if he would put me under the ground, and I feel that I'm going to die, I will reconsider. But so far, there is no danger for my life. So I told him, "You know what, Major Fyodorov, I have my lord. I'm taking his orders, not your orders. Okay? Take him to the punishment room." So 2 big soldiers come to escort me, and I remember me going in snow from the factory to the punishment room, and I looked to 2 soldiers. I thought, it's like Malachim, like angels, because they are bringing me right to the Kisei HaKavod, I thought, what a privilege. Thank you, Ribono Shel Olam, for the privilege to be punished for keeping Shabbos. I thought maybe there is nobody else except of me in the whole world that being punished of keeping Shabbos. So I was put there in a punishment room, and I stayed there for a week. On Shabbos, they opened the door and told, "Mendelevich, you are free, you can go." Where? To the factory, to work on Shabbos. I told, "Thank you, I would better stay in a punishment room." Next week, the same. Another week, the same. Until they understood that nothing will happen. Also, you can understand that the punishment room is a very small place. There are cold inside. They give only bread and water. But a young man can withstand it, How much do we need? Doctors nowadays say that it is healthy, right? Not to eat too much. So everything was okay with me. finally, they understood that they cannot break my will, and they took me to a court and sentenced me to 3 years of imprisonment for violating the rules of the prison. For I had a yarmulke on my head, I taught other Jews Torah and mitzvahs, and kept Shabbos. So on the way, I had 2 big miracles. To begin with, believe me, I never had a telescope. So when my student Shimon got released from the prison, went to Israel, I told him, send me over a telescope. I would like to have it. So one day, I was called to the office. They would distribute the mail, and the guard told me, you know, we got something strange that we can't understand. What is it? So I understood that Shimon sent me a telescope, and I thought, you know, I can't admit that it is a religious object, so it would be confiscated. So I told, you know, Celtic people have skirts, you know, it's a national dressing, and we Jews have our national undershirt. It's our national undershirt. He laughed at it and told me, no, it's a religious object, it's confiscated. But as far as I had to travel in a train from one prison to another, I got to keep it for a time until I arrived to another prison. It would be again confiscated. So certainly I put on the tzitzis, but it was not enough. I understood that soon they will take it away. So what to do? How to save my tzitzis? And I was enough knowledgeable to understand that the baguette by itself is not that important. Which is important? The tzitzis. So I took out tzitzis like that, you know, and other more, and then I had woolen socks. So I was permitted to have a pair of woolen socks, so I pushed the tzitzis inside the woolen socks, and it looked like this. Like I imagine, like your children have pompons on their socks. So when I arrived at the prison, they told, you are permitted to have socks. You know, where's your socks? Okay, have it. It's how I got tzitzis inside the prison. You know, it turned out that it's a prison for gangsters, for killers, you know. They never looked for tzitzis. They looked for weapon, drug, and money, not for tzitzis. It's how I got it. And then, you know, I had another problem, you know. I understood that having tzitzis on the socks, I am not performing a mitzvah. I will show, there is one of the books. There's a lot of photographs in it. And it shows me, there's the photographs here. See, it's me nowadays, and it's my telescope that I made in prison from a shawl. I had a woolen shawl, so I pushed these tzitzis inside the shawl on 4 angles, put it under my uniform, and we were permitted to have a shawl. So since then, I had the mitzvah tzitzis. And then I had another miracle. I got on the board illegal chumash. And I figured how I can smuggle a chumash inside the prison, for they would permit only books printed and endorsed by the authorities in Soviet Russia. And the chumash was not endorsed by the authorities. It was considered anti-Soviet literature. But then I had another idea. I took with me to the prison a book in Yiddish, feeling that at least I will try myself speaking Yiddish, Mameloshen. And the book in Yiddish was the speeches of Comrade Brezhnev. A certain Jew got a good parnosa to translate it, you know, and got a book. It was laughable. And all of a sudden, I compared the size of a chumash of these speeches of Comrade Brezhnev. It was the same size. So I took the first page of the Yiddish book, whereas underneath were printed, permitted by the authorities. And I made some bread, Jew bread, and put it as a first page in my chumash, and I published that time the first legal chumash in Soviet Russia. Also, I was aware that Pesach I have to sell it for its chametz. It was done now from bread. Anyway, it's how I arrived to the prison, and the first question that I asked the guard, tell please what the kind of occupations they have in the factory. So the guard told me, what factory? You know, as I told you, it is for the gangsters, you know. People are seated and closed in cell, nobody would permit you walk out, for you start killing each other, you know. So I understood that for 3 years I have no problems at all of keeping Shabbos, you know, they don't work there. And it is how I translate what Pirkei Avos says, Oseh mitzvah achad, zocheh la'asot mitzvot rabot. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. If you perform one mitzvah profoundly, you deserve more mitzvahs. I perform mitzvah Shabbos, and I deserve mitzvah Shabbos in silent way, mitzvah tzitzis, and mitzvah Talmud Torah. Anyway, as far as we coming to Pesach, and the time is late, I will tell you only a story how I kept Pesach in like instruction for housewife, how to keep Pesach in prison. It was the 10th year of my imprisonment, and I was in this prison, and I decided I will have a Seder Pesach. For I got a postcard from Israel with a plate of produced in Germany, like in, I believe, in 18th century, a beautiful plate. Maybe somebody even saw it, you know, from Israel Museum. And there on the plate was written everything that you need. Zroa and Beitze, Mor and Karpos, and then on the edge of this postcard was the whole Seder Pesach. Rachatz, V'yachatz, V'kadesh, everything. So it was very easy to write down and make a real Haggadah of Pesach, but I needed all the subject for it. So an egg I had already, for Ida Noodle would send me egg powder. So I decided I will make for egg powder some kind of egg. And then it was flu. All prisoners got ill in my prison, and the authorities wouldn't have any medicine against flu, so they give to everybody an onion, you know, like prevents the disease. Now every prisoner ate it immediately, for we never saw a fresh vegetable for years, so I swallowed it. And I figured that you can make out from an onion, if you put in water, you will get green leaves, and you can use it for maror. So I put it in water, you know, and people thought, what, you don't like onion? Give it me, I will eat it. No, I enjoy seeing it growing. Anyway, I looked for karpas, and I would mention, but when we were in prison looking for eating better food, we understood we can eat grass, herbs. For this labor camp was outside in a forest, and some herbs were growing down from the ground, and they were eatable. So never say Mendelevich ate grass in the prison. We had vitamins, we had protein. So, and it is how I could understood which kind of herb is eatable or not. When I walked out from my exercise yard, I noticed that across the passageway in another exercise yard is growing a certain herb that is eatable. And just to explain, you normally see prisoners in exercise yard going around, like all of them, going around in a circle, but it is not in KGB. In KGB, each cell moved to another cell without a roof, just to breathe a fresh air for an hour. So all the exercise yards were a lot of cells on the top of the building, and it is how I saw in another cell a herb growing and breaking through asphalt. So I felt it is a symbol, you know, a big green leaf breaks asphalt, striving to freedom, striving to sun. I thought I will use this herb for karpas. And then you need wine, you know, arba koises. And I had a solution for arba koises as well. For my father, Olav Sholem, when I was under interrogation, we were permitted to get parcels with food. And he sent me raisins. So regularly I would use raisins for kiddush. I was somehow ignorant, so I believed that we make a kiddush bore pri agafe, and raisins is a pri, right? Is a pri, so I would make kiddush on 2 raisins, and I would give, if we had a common Shabbos meals, I would distribute to other Jewish prisoners. But in the end, I had still a handful of raisins. So I collected some sugar, for we were given each day a spoonful of sugar, and I collected the sugar and raisin and water. So I put it all together. I had a flask, and I put this flask under my board, for there was a hot water going down in beneath of this bench. So I figured that it will be a chemical process and it will make me wine. So in the end, I prepared everything. I wrote my Agadah of Pesach, and I told to a Jewish friend, Hillel Butman, that you saw here on the screen, Hillel, let us have a Seder Pesach. He told, what you talking about? You can have a Seder Pesach in a prison. I made from Pravda, newspaper Pravda, a plate, karat of Pesach. I made it like, you know, like looking like a karat of Pesach. And I put there my egg, and I had my karpas and my moror. And he showed him. He told me, but you don't have wine, you know. You can't do anything without wine. So I took this flask from under the board. He opened the cork. He smelled. He told me, it's real wine, you know. So let's have a Seder Pesach. So we had a beautiful Seder Pesach. And then he told me in the end, you know what? For the first time in my life, I had a real Seder Pesach. Next day, he was taken away from the cell and from the prison. He disappeared, you know. And we couldn't understand what happened. And there were all kinds of rumors. By chance, my exercise yard once was next to that of Sharansky. So I knocked at the wall. Each time when a person entered his exercise yard, he would knock at the wall to check who is walking next to him. It was Nathan, so I told, you know something about Butman? What happened with him? He told me, sure, all your friends from this hijack operation being released, you know. So I told, what about myself? You know, he told, see, there is a SALT agreement on the way of nuclear disarmament, and like a humanitarian step, all the prisoners of Zion were divided in 2 parts. The first part is already released, and the second part will be released after the Senate will endorse the agreement. So me, he told, and you and I, the Nudala, in the second group, we expect you. And that time, it was the invasion of Russian troops in Afghanistan, and Senate never ratified it. So it is how I stayed another 2 years in the prison. So it went on. Yeah, a lot of stories. In the book, I say there is 350 pages in the book. There are 350 stories. So, you know, I just finish and I tell when I was already on my 11th year of imprisonment, you know, somehow I felt bad, you know. How long can you continue this way? Hunger strikes, protests, punishment rooms. So I told Ribbono Shel Olam, I know that Gemara says, Eretz Yisrael niknes b'yisurim. And I had an idea. I told, Eretz Yisrael is other few, 11. And I saw 11 years in the prison. So I told, maybe Ribbono Shel Olam, with my Yud Aleph, I deserved your all of you. And it happened like that, you know. Pity that I wouldn't have prayed before that. But anyway, after, I could not, or it was not 11. Anyway, after a while, I was taken at night from the prison, and I was brought directly to Moscow. They had the headquarters, so-called Lefortovo prison, and I was there for 2 weeks without understanding what is happening. I was afraid they are looking to add to my punishment, And then after all, I was called for interrogation, and it was a strange place. A big room with 3 people seated, 2 colonels, and 1 plainclothes. So I remember that sometimes they had a troika, you know, that they would judge you on the place and execute in the back room. So who knows, you know, I thought maybe they will do it with me. So this plainclothes man stood up, took a sheet of paper and told, it's the decree of Supreme Soviet, their parliament. According to the decree of Supreme Soviet, this scoundrel Mendelevich doesn't deserve anymore be a Soviet citizen. His citizenship is being cancelled and he is sent away from our Russian motherland. Go away, we don't need you anymore. You know, it took 11 years to decide. Anyway, they put me in a big black car, escorting with police on motorbikes. The colonel that was with me in the car told me, we are giving you honor like you're being a president, you know. And as far as I'm Yosef, I remember that there was a Yosef, second king of Egypt. So I thought I deserve some honor as well, you know. I'm not like him, but at least. So when we come to the airport, before going up to the airplane, I talked to the colonel and told him, see, colonel, you arrested us 11 years ago in the airport to prevent us from going to Israel. Now, I was aware that time already some 300,000 Jews got permission to leave, but we need Shishim Rivo. So we are missing some 300,000 more. So I told him, you have to release everybody, or otherwise, you know, your empire will crash if you keep us here in Russian slavery. And he told something very interesting. He told me, you know what? We never could believe that you have this strong will of you. And I interpreted it in my language. For I did remember when in undergrad Ulpan, I taught my students the famous proverb, Ein davar haomed bifnei haratzon. Nothing can withstand a strong will. But put attention, haratzon means a specific ratzon, not everybody's. Who is the specific haratzon? Is a ratzon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ribono shel Olam wants us being good and strong Eden. And remember that we are special because of Torah, mitzvahs, and Eretz Yisrael. And somebody that is following his will became a celebrity. If you would like to become a celebrity, follow his will. And finally, as you know, the Russian Empire crashed down, and Am Yisrael Yoytze be'yad Rama. Thank you.